Recently, I went through multiple color analysis sessions and I got my body type analyzed professionally. Now, you clicked on this video because you want the answer to the question, so was it worth it? And to give you the short version of the answer, I'd say yes, but I actually have more to say about this topic. So in this video, I'm gonna give you the long version of my answer to the question, was it truly worth it and should you go for it? I'll share all of my takeaways and learnings with you, and we'll also talk about how to get the most value out of these sessions if you decide to pull the trigger. Like I said, if I were to give a yes or no answer, I'd say yes, it was worth it for me because I got some great takeaways that I can implement into my wardrobe, and what I've learned is going to change how I shop going forward. Now, before giving you the long version of the answer, let's talk about some of the positives first. So, what I've learned and gained throughout this process. First of all, it's given me more courage to try new things that are outside of my comfort zone. For example, I ended up buying these leopard print pants after being assessed as a deep autumn. And this is an item that I normally wouldn't have thought of trying. I did have leopard print accessories on my wish list for a while, but I probably would have gone with like a belt or a bag or something, and never did I think that I would actually purchase a pair of pants in this type of print. But after confirming that I'm an autumn, I was like, okay, well, bring on the prints. The fit of these pants are also very oversized, and initially I thought about returning them, but in the end, I just decided that this is something that I can embrace as a natural body type, because apparently naturals are the most suitable for oversized items, and we're also the type that can make sweatpants look stylish, whereas on other types they might look a bit sloppy. So I just decided to take it as a blessing. And am I going a little overboard with everything being oversized and extremely casual? Maybe, but I'm just getting into it, and not everyone has to agree. Now, some people really want to get color analysis done because they want to narrow down the colors when it comes to shopping, but this wasn't necessarily the takeaway for me. If you've been following the series, you know that I got 2 separate color analysis sessions by different analysts, and I liked the second session much better than the first one because I preferred the second analyst approach. With the first session, once we went through the draping session, it was kind of like, okay, well, you're a deep bottom and these are your best colors. So she circled my first and second best tones on the PCCS chart. She gave me a little color chip to go home with. And I felt like this method was a little bit restrictive because I was literally being told, these are your best colors, wear these with achromatic colors like black, white, and gray. With the second analyst, she focused a lot more on what not to wear. So again, on the PCCS chart, she crossed out all of the tones that I should avoid because they're my worst tones. But when it comes to all other colors, she explained that it just depends on how I wear them. So for example, if I wanted to wear soft, medium valued colors that contain a lot of gray, they're not my best colors, but I can still make them work if I wear them with darker colors, or if I use the color in a smaller section of the outfit, like in the accessories. On the other hand, deep, strong, and dark tones are my best colors, so I can wear them on a large surface, by itself, as an accessory, whatever I want, because they are my best colors. So I felt like she just went more in depth with how to actually wear the colors. And there was a lot more emphasis placed on contrast. So again, if I wanted to wear a soft color, then I should avoid pairing that color with another soft color because then the contrast is going to be way too low for my natural contrast level. Even with patterns, if the first session was about comparing stripes against polka dots and looking at what size between small, medium, and large, the second session went more in depth with the different pattern types, how to wear them, and how to wear smaller patterns that might not be suitable for my season, but how I can still make them work. So the first session was simpler. It was like, these are your best colors, wear them. Whereas the second session was more about how to wear not only my best colors, but also my not so best colors, and which are my absolute worst colors to avoid. So it was more based on giving me a range of colors that I can work with. And which method is better, I think is just dependent on personal preference. Mine was the second session because it felt less restrictive. I got more learnings out of it, and I felt like she gave me more room to play around with rather than just giving me a set of colors I can work with. But some people might also just prefer that simplicity. So on that note, I also think that finding an analyst that you like is important. With the first session, I went to that business because I knew they used the 22 season system, and this was something different that I wanted to try outside of the traditional 12 seasons. They also offered a body type session, so it was kind of a all-in-one package, but I didn't know anything about the analyst prior to the session. She was just an employee there. With the second analyst, I follow her channel, I took all of her courses, and I have a lot of respect for her perspective when it comes to colors. So I'm not surprised that I ended up liking the second session much more because it was just more convincing for me, and I agree with her methodology. For me, what's most important is what I take away as learnings and how I can apply them in my own way that makes sense to me. So I guess in that sense, the less black and white method just felt more valuable because it really changed how I perceive colors when I'm putting an outfit together or when I'm shopping. I'm just less about being laser focused on finding my best colors, and I prefer to experiment, which is why I found the second session to be more worthwhile for me. But either way, whichever your preference is, doing some prior research about the analyst or the business is always helpful. Now going back to the long version of my answer to the question, so was it all worth it? I'd still say yes, it was worth it, but only if you keep these things in mind before walking into a session. The first thing to keep in mind is that what you're paying for is an opinion and not an answer, because subjectivity cannot be taken out of these things 100%. Of course, there are certain visual effects that colors will have on our skin, or how certain fabrics hang on a frame versus a flesh-dominant body. That's obviously going to be very different. Like, those are objective facts, but as soon as we bring in the question, which one looks better, then that becomes a subjective opinion. The criteria may be objective, but the verdict is not, because there's so many layers underneath that decision of which is better, like psychological effects, cultural implications, past experiences. And of course, consultants are trained to be as objective as possible, but they're also not machines. If we use colors as an example again, colors are subjective. Or to be more accurate, the way individuals perceive colors is subjective. Colors can seem to change depending on lighting, brain processing. They can even look different when you look at one color by itself versus having another color next to it. The way we see colors is not absolute. So a truly objective statement would be something like, soft colors are colors that contain both white and black. Or wearing cool colors brings out more bluish tones in the skin because of color assimilation. Those are facts, but in these sessions, they're trying to decide for you which of these effects is better, and that becomes an opinion. It's an educated one from training and experience, but it's still not entirely objective. And this also means that you might not agree 100%, and that's okay. In my first color analysis session video, I talked about some of the areas that I disagreed with the analyst. And I also think it's why some people might think that color analysis is a scam, because they're expecting 100% objectivity on a topic that you can't be 100% objective about. Even the two analysts that I went to had different opinions. The first analyst thought that vivid is my second best tone, and the second analyst thought that it's actually one of my worst. I mean, we could say that they were pretty close because vivid and deep tones are pretty close to each other on the PCCS chart, but this is dependent on how you look at it. The two tones can also be very different and far from each other depending on your perspective. So always have a skeptical eye and don't expect concrete answers in terms of right and wrong, because then if you disagree, then that automatically means that they're right and you're wrong, and that just leads to more self-doubt, and you might even feel like the whole thing wasn't worth it because you're gonna do what you want anyways. But if you walk in with the mindset that you're paying or asking for a perspective and there is no right or wrong answer, then you're not giving someone else the power to dictate what feels right for you. And this actually leads nicely to my next point. Some of you might be thinking, well, duh, that's why I'm paying to see an expert, because I can't tell what's better or worse for myself. And I think that a lot of the times we expect these experts to know us better than we know ourselves. And yes, they do have the experience working with many different people, but I also look at myself every single day, and I've been dressing myself for the last 30 something years. So I think it's completely normal to have disagreements and doubts because they might have more experience working with different people, but they don't know you better than you know yourself. Like I said, I think it's where that unsettling feeling can come from, because you might disagree with what they have to say, but you lack the confidence, and it's confusing because they are the experts and they should know better. But we should also realize that we are also experts when it comes to ourselves. Like during my body type session, if I were assessed as a wave type, let's say, that would seriously make me question the results. If I were assessed as a straight type, I think I'd be a lot more receptive about it. But it's one thing to wonder if you could be something different, and it's another thing to know what exactly you're not. It'd be like somebody telling me that I'm a soft gamine or romantic in Kibi. And to be honest, that would make me feel like I wasted my money. And I know that kind of makes me sound like a skeptic. Like you might be thinking, then what the hell was the point for you if you had already made up your mind about it? But I'm not saying be closed-minded altogether. Be open-minded, but to an extent, because you know what you are and what you're not. Intuition is a powerful thing, and we should learn to trust it more. I see this a lot with my own clients too. A lot of you tell me that you don't know what you're doing or you're clueless when it comes to these things. But when I take a look at the photos, I'm like, you're doing fine. Like, you're doing a lot better than you think. I think that we know ourselves the best, and it's probably a lot more than we realize or give ourselves credit for. Okay, so you've decided that you want to go ahead with color analysis or body type analysis. So how do you get the most value out of these sessions? Speaking from experience, I would say record your session. I did it for content purposes, but I realized that I learned so much more just by reviewing the footage, because I was actually taking the time to process the information at my own pace. These sessions go by so quickly because they're constantly talking to you, giving you information. It's like information overload. So being able to review everything at my own pace just made a world of difference for me. I was also able to find some questionable areas while I was reviewing everything. For example, during the first color analysis session, when she was comparing different levels of warm and cool colors on me, I noticed that one of the warm colors she was using was actually not warm at all. It was like a very cool pink. So if you find anything questionable like that, then you can always follow up, right? And they'll usually allow you to ask questions via email even after the sessions. So I highly recommend you to record everything. I mean, most people should be fine with it, especially now that everyone's sharing everything on social media. And if you're just recording yourself for a private collection, then I don't see why not. But always do get their consent prior to booking your session. Another thing you can do to get more value out of these sessions after you get your results is to deep dive into just thinking about how you would actually wear these colors or silhouettes. Because it's not just about what your best colors or what your best silhouettes are, but it's about how you would actually incorporate them into your current wardrobe. In my personal opinion, things like color analysis or body type analysis are never too mainstream. Or they have become mainstream because of social media, but they've never been like the mainstream thing to do. And I think one of the reasons is because it lacks practical application. I mean, like finding your best colors and best silhouettes is one thing, but now that you know, like what are you gonna do with that information? In terms of colors, you might be thinking, well, black goes with everything, so why don't I just wear my best color with black? But does it? Like, is black always your best option? because it might not be based on the temperature of colors, based on your contrast level. There's actually more layers to think about once you figure out what your best colors are, and pairing everything with black might not be the best option, especially if you're trying to improve your style. And how you put things together and what you think looks best is dependent on you. So that could also mean that rules can be broken depending on what you think looks good. For example, during my body type analysis video, I styled a few outfits, and one of the outfits, I technically broke the rule for my body type because the material was too thin and the top was too form-fitting for me. And it turned out to be a favorite for many of you because it ended up creating more proportional interest to the outfit despite breaking the rules. So go on Pinterest or wherever you gather inspiration from and study how these colors and silhouettes are actually used in different outfits. And then you can decide how you would wear them. You could look into your current closet to see if you already have your best colors or silhouettes or fabrics. And if not, then what other items do you have that would go well with those? You might even be able to salvage some items that are technically not your best. I have this icy blue button-down shirt, which is apparently one of my worst colors, but I love this shirt. It kind of goes with anything, and I'm not gonna toss it just because it's not in my color palette. But I can try to find other ways to wear it. For example, I think a brown and blue combo would look really nice, and brown is one of my best colors, so there you go. Like I said, what I've realized is how to actually wear these items or colors is so much more important than just knowing what our best colors or silhouettes are. But oftentimes we get so fixated on figuring out our color season or our body type that we tend to overlook how to actually implement them into practice in a way that makes sense to our own personal style. So spending lots of time thinking not only about what the best colors or silhouettes are, but how to actually wear them is gonna lead to curating a more holistic wardrobe that makes sense altogether and that we're content with. So this was the last video on the whole series for getting my colors and body type analyzed. I thought this would be a good way to wrap it up by sharing all of my learnings with you. I hope you found the series helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.